Young Frankenstein wasn't just a black-and-white parody of old horror films. It was a cinematic rebellion, a riotous experiment that dared to mock Hollywood classics while honoring them at the same time. Behind the laughs and lightning bolts, there was creative chaos, fights over film stock, studio resistance, improvised genius, electrical fires, and actors who couldn't keep a straight face if their lives depended on it. You're about to uncover 20 weird facts about Young Frankenstein, secrets involving broken sets, censorship battles, and one iconic joke that cost $20,000. Stick around for the bonus fact that reveals the one chilling connection between Young Frankenstein and a real-life tragedy. Let's begin. And don't forget to bring your sense of humor and maybe a pitchfork. 1. Mel Brooks didn't want to direct it. It wasn't ego, it was instinct. Mel Brooks initially refused to direct Young Frankenstein. Why? He didn't think he was the right man for the job. When Gene Wilder first pitched the concept, during the filming of Blazing Saddles no less, Brooks loved the idea. But he believed the movie needed a fresh directorial voice, someone who could truly pay homage to the universal monster classics. Eventually, Gene pushed hard enough that Brooks relented. But even after signing on, Brooks swore he wouldn't make it unless the film was in black and white. That decision would spark a bitter war with the studio. More on that later. So yes, the king of parody almost passed on his own masterpiece. It wasn't confidence, it was creative caution. But sometimes the best decisions come from second thoughts. 2. The laboratory equipment was 100% real. That lightning-flashing, lever-pulling, bubbling lab you see on screen? It's not a prop, it's history. Mel Brooks tracked down Kenneth Strickfaden, the original electrical effects wizard behind 1931's Frankenstein. Incredibly, Strickfaden still had all his equipment stored in a garage. Coils, switchboards, the Tesla rig, even the glowing electrodes. Brooks rented the entire setup for Young Frankenstein and gave Strickfaden screen credit, something Universal never did. The result? Authenticity you can feel. Every spark is real. Every hum and buzz is from an actual working machine. It wasn't set decoration, it was electricity, alive and crackling like a co-star. Audiences laughed, horror fans gasped. But the lab wasn't parody, it was reverence resurrected. 3. Peter Boyle's makeup took 3 hours, and it nearly broke him. Becoming Frankenstein's monster wasn't just about lurching and groaning. Peter Boyle spent up to 3 hours a day in the makeup chair, sometimes longer. The process involved glue-on prosthetics, head caps, and hours of airbrushing to get that eerie pallor just right. But the worst part? The contact lenses. They were thick, uncomfortable, and limited his vision. Boyle once stumbled off set after filming and nearly fell into a gully. Add to that the bulky costume and 20-pound boots, and you had an actor who could barely move, but who still had to dance a full tap routine. Boyle never complained, but by the end of production, his skin had started reacting to the adhesive, and his back was thrown out. It wasn't just a comedic role, it was physical torture hidden behind a slow smile and a top hat. 4. Gene Wilder couldn't keep it together. Literally. Gene Wilder is the soul of Young Frankenstein. But if you thought his intensity was perfectly measured, think again. Off camera, he broke constantly. During the scene where Dr. Frankenstein shouts, "Alive! It's alive!" the entire crew had to reshoot multiple takes because Wilder kept bursting into laughter, not at the scene, but at Peter Boyle's groaning responses, which were improvised and absurd. Wilder was so prone to cracking that Mel Brooks banned him from being near Marty Feldman during rehearsals. Feldman's eyes, mannerisms, and ad-libbed lines, including "What hump?" sent Wilder into fits. In fact, the only way Brooks got clean takes was by threatening to cut scenes entirely if Wilder couldn't control himself. The threat worked, but barely. Gene's genius came with giggles. 5. The horse Winnie gag cost $20,000. Every time someone says, "Frau Blücher," a horse whinnies in terror. It's one of the film's most iconic running gags, but it was also one of the most expensive. The sound team originally used stock horse whinnies, but Brooks hated them. They didn't whinny with fear, as he put it. So the studio brought in a sound designer to custom record terrified horse audio using layered shrieks, neighs, and warped vocal effects. The gag, which lasts just a few seconds per scene, racked up costs of $20,000 in post-production mixing and re-recording. Studio execs balked, but Brooks refused to let it go. He said if the horses didn't scream in terror, the joke would die. And in a film where every detail mattered, even the neighs had to be perfect. 6. Marty Feldman changed the script. With a hump, Marty Feldman didn't just play Iger, he rewrote him on the fly. The most famous gag, the shifting hump, was never in the script. Feldman started moving the hump from shoulder to shoulder between takes as a joke. When no one said anything, he kept doing it. Eventually, Mel Brooks noticed and asked if he was messing with continuity. Feldman grinned and said, "What hump?" That joke became canon. It wasn't rehearsed, it wasn't approved. But it worked so perfectly, Brooks left it in. Feldman's improvisation turned a minor supporting role into a comedic centerpiece. Not just a sidekick, but a gremlin of chaos, whose biggest joke was a mistake nobody caught until it was too late to fix. 7. The studio fought tooth and nail against black and white. Mel Brooks was adamant. Young Frankenstein had to be in black and white. The studio said absolutely not. In 1974, black and white was box office poison. Executives argued, pleaded, even offered more budget if Brooks agreed to film in color and desaturate it later. Brooks refused. He even threatened to quit. He believed that black and white was essential to evoke the original 1930s horror films. It wasn't about nostalgia. It was about tone. Eventually, the studio caved, but only after Brooks promised not to make it a habit. Ironically, the black and white look became one of the film's most praised features. Not compromise. Vision. 8. Puttin' on the Ritz was almost cut. That unforgettable moment when the monster sings, "Puttin' on the Ritz?" It almost didn't happen. Mel Brooks thought the scene was too ridiculous and would ruin the tone. Gene Wilder fought hard for it, insisting the absurdity was exactly what the film needed. He wrote long letters, pleaded, threatened to quit. Finally, Brooks relented and shot the scene, still skeptical. When audiences saw the monster shuffle across the stage in tucks and tails, erupting into "Puttin' on the Ritz," the theater exploded with laughter. The scene became legendary, not slapstick, surreal genius. And it all hinged on one actor's refusal to let a musical joke die. 9. Chloris Leechman played it deadly serious. While everyone else leaned into absurdity, Chloris Leechman, Frau Blücher herself, played her role like a Shakespearean tragedy. Leechman believed the comedy came from contrast. She never cracked a smile. She never winked at the audience. She gave 100% dramatic intensity to every line, even as she poured brandy for the nerves. That choice grounded the character and made her even funnier. Behind the scenes, though, Leechman drove the crew wild with how seriously she took rehearsal. She demanded a private session just to perfect how she would light her candelabra. But the result? One of the most memorable comedic characters in film history, built not on punchlines, but on stone-faced commitment. 10. The Blind Hermit scene. Took 17 takes. When Gene Hackman shows up as the lonely blind hermit, everything goes wrong, for Frankenstein's monster and for production. Hackman hadn't done comedy before. He was excited, but too intense. He poured scalding soup on Boyle, crushed his crotch with a log, and accidentally lit his thumb on fire. Every time something went wrong, the crew broke into hysterics, especially Boyle and Feldman. The scene took 17 takes to finish. Boyle even got minor burns, but Hackman was so committed he insisted on staying to finish the shoot. The result? One of the funniest scenes in the movie and proof that comedy is pain, sometimes literally. go ahead and like and subscribe, because we're only halfway to the weirdest secrets this film buried in its castle basement. From censorship threats to accidental fires, what's coming next is even wilder than what you've heard so far. 11. Fire nearly destroyed the castle. Set. The Gothic atmosphere of Frankenstein's castle came with real danger. During the scene where the monster is being strapped down to the operating table, a spark from the live equipment ignited a drape. Within seconds, flames leapt up the side of the wall. Crew members rushed in with fire extinguishers, dousing the flames before they could spread. But the scare was serious. A section of the wall had to be repainted, and filming was delayed for half a day. Mel Brooks refused to remove the scene. He simply instructed the effects team to dial back the voltage and try not to burn the damn place down again. It wasn't a controlled blaze, it was a near catastrophe. But on a set filled with lightning and madness, maybe that was just part of the magic. 12. A deleted scene made test audiences cry. There was one scene in Young Frankenstein that wasn't funny at all. Gene Wilder wrote an emotional moment between the monster and a group of village children where the creature shows a gentle side, feeding birds and softly humming. The tone was tender, almost poetic. When shown to test audiences, many viewers cried. Some said it changed how they viewed the entire film. But Mel Brooks, after reviewing the footage, cut the scene. He felt it disrupted the pacing and undercut the absurdity that followed. Wilder was devastated, but admitted later that Brooks made the right call. The footage is now lost, believed to have been destroyed in editing. A moment of beauty, vanished like a dream, never meant to be seen. 13. The monster's tap shoes were a size 19 when Peter Boyle donned that tuxedo and began tapping to "Puttin' on the Ritz." He was wearing custom-made size 19 tap shoes. Yes, you heard that right. Size 19. No shoe company made them. The costume department had to construct the shoes from scratch, using modified clown shoes and reinforced soles to handle the weight. Boyle had no tap experience. He rehearsed the routine for 3 weeks straight. The final result? Pure comedy gold. But between the weight of the shoes and the restrictive prosthetics, Boyle reportedly lost 7 pounds over the course of filming the musical number. Dancing in size 19S isn't comedy. It's dedication with blisters. 14. The censors almost killed the monster's moan. One of the most infamous moments in Young Frankenstein is when Elizabeth, played by Maline Khan, sings during an intimate encounter with the monster. Her over-the-top vocalizations shocked censors at the MPAA. They demanded the scene be shortened and the moaning reduced. Mel Brooks refused. He argued that it was too absurd to be offensive. Eventually, a compromise was reached, a few seconds trimmed, but the moan stayed. Brooks quipped in an interview, "They were fine with people being sewn together from corpses, but heaven forbid a woman enjoy herself." The censorship battle was real, and it almost silenced one of the most iconic gags in the entire movie. 15. Maline Khan improvised. Her iconic hair scene. After the monster and Elizabeth's passionate encounter, her hair is styled in the shockwave fashion of the Bride of Frankenstein. That moment wasn't in the script. Maline Khan improvised it. She arrived on set with a towering white-streaked wig and asked, "Can we just shoot one where I come out like this?" Brooks laughed so hard he agreed instantly. The result? One of the most unforgettable visual gags in the movie, Elizabeth transformed from prim socialite to Gothic goddess, all with a sly wink. Khan's ability to read the comedic rhythm of a scene made her irreplaceable. That hair wasn't a joke, it was a crown. 16. The script was written in just 3 weeks. You'd think a script this layered would take months to write, but Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks banged out the first draft in just 3 weeks. They wrote in bursts, laughing, arguing, revising late into the night. Wilder handled structure and emotional beats. Brooks piled on the absurdity. Every scene was debated. every line tested out loud. When they finished, they both knew they had something special. The first draft was nearly production ready. Even the walk this way gag made the cut with no edits. Comedy like this might feel effortless on screen, but it was forged in a white-hot sprint of creativity and caffeine. 17. They had to fight to use the title. Frankenstein, 20th Century Fox didn't want to call it Young Frankenstein. They argued the title sounded like a sequel or a kiddie movie. Suggestions like Son of Frankenstein's Fool, The Doctor is In, and The Monster and Me were floated. Mel Brooks refused them all. He insisted that Young Frankenstein gave the film weight and clarity. It wasn't a spoof. It was a continuation, through comedy, of a cinematic legacy. Eventually, Brooks won the fight, but only after threatening to walk. He later joked, "If they'd forced me to call it Frankenfool, I'd have burned the reel myself." 18. The film was shot in just 42 days. Despite its elaborate sets and detailed production design, Young Frankenstein was filmed in just 42 days. That's 6 weeks. No reshoots, no padding. Every shot was planned with military precision. Mel Brooks, known for spontaneity, was laser-focused on efficiency here. Because of the black and white photography, lighting had to be perfect. Scenes were blocked and rehearsed for hours before the camera rolled. Boyle and Wilder trained like theater actors. The schedule was brutal, but it gave the film a kind of energy, a controlled chaos that made every moment crackle, not just efficient. Legendary. 19. The cast would laugh between takes, and then cry. When the cameras weren't rolling, the cast shared a strange emotional rhythm, non-stop laughter followed by moments of deep, quiet reflection. Gene Wilder reportedly cried after filming his final scene, overcome by how special the film felt. Peter Boyle described the shoot as a dream that knew it was ending. Mel Brooks later said, "We laughed so much on that set that we grieved when it was over." Comedy brings people together. But Young Frankenstein built something deeper, a family of misfits, weirdos, and comedic geniuses who knew they'd made lightning strike. 20th. The movie was almost released in color. After the fact, in a bizarre twist, some studio executives pushed to colorize Young Frankenstein after its initial release. They believed the film could be re-released in color to a broader audience. Mel Brooks was furious. He issued a public statement threatening to sue any company that altered the print. "Messing with the black and white is like repainting the Mona Lisa," he said. The plan was scrapped. Brooks ensured that every print carried an ironclad no colorization clause. It wasn't nostalgia, it was integrity. To this day, Young Frankenstein remains untouched, as it should be. Bonus fact: The Monster's Roar was based on real screams from a psychiatric ward. The monstrous roars heard throughout the film weren't just stock audio, they came from a chilling source. Sound editor Don Hall reportedly used archived field recordings of patients from a 1940s psychiatric institution, originally recorded for wartime trauma studies. The sounds were edited, layered, and pitched down to create the creature's primal groans. Mel Brooks was uneasy, but ultimately allowed it, believing it gave the monster a deeper, more human pain. The result? An unsettling soundscape that wasn't purely fantasy, but built from real suffering. It's the haunting heart beneath the comedy, not fiction. Echoes of reality. Young Frankenstein was never just a spoof, it was a reverent resurrection, built on classic horror bones, animated by comedic lightning, and held together by the love of its creators. Behind the laughs were burns, breakdowns, creative standoffs, and last-minute miracles. What audiences didn't know was how close it came to falling apart, how deeply the actors cared, and how one black-and-white monster movie rewrote the rules for what parody could be. If these 21 weird facts brought you back to the castle, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe for more behind-the-scenes revelations, and share this with someone who still pronounces it Frankenstein, because some monsters are made in labs and some are made in scripts. See you in the next reel.